that was a real good thing. In the last 5 years, I've been chairman of the board, and chairman gets to know the CEO better than the board members do. So I spent quite a bit of time with Delvin and got to know him and really learned and grew to appreciate him and his vision and just what he wanted to do here at Rock of Ages and taking care of elderly people. I thought of a verse, Psalms 127, verse 1, that says, "Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain." And I think of that in relationship to Delvin in that, you know, there's a lot of changes here since he was a 22-year-old or whatever he was when he started working here, and a few years later was asked to be the administrator as a young man. There's a lot of changes that have taken place here since then. A lot of building, a lot of expansion. But as I think back and look back on that, I know that it was part of building with the Lord in mind, building with a mission in mind to help and take care of people. And I always appreciated that. One of the other things that always stuck out to me about Delvin is how that he really had a heart for residents that came through here. That his concern was for them, to take care of them, to help them in a lot of different ways, in a physical way and a mental way and even a spiritual way, as he had the opportunity. It was in a lot of ways it was more of a mission for him than it was just a job. And I always appreciated him for that. If you know Delvin very well, you know that he is a dreamer. He has a lot of times big dreams. And if you look at Rock of Ages, you see the result of that. There's been a lot of these things that were kind of birthed in his mind that presented to the board, and we worked through it, and they came to pass. The new lodge, the TLC building, and other projects that he did. And that's what you need in these settings. And so it's been good to work with Delvin over the years, and you know, when he said he was ready to retire, it looked like a big job for us as a board to find a replacement. And it was kind of a job to do that. We do have a replacement, and actually I was going to do this quick, but I forgot. I'd just like to introduce Bill Blank, our new CEO. He's there in the back, so you can turn around and if you have interest in Rock of Ages or comments, or he's the guy to talk to now. It used to be Delvin, but now it's Bill. But kind of the progress. Now, this afternoon I've asked a few other people to come up and just say we don't want to have a long program and it was real hot. We're probably tired of sitting in the heat, but we'll try not to keep you here too long. So I've asked Gary Nice, another board member, if he'd come up and say a few words.
Got to eat this thing. I reached up here at the Rock of Ages not long ago, and they said I didn't stand close enough to the microphone. So I'll try to do a little bit better. It's good to be here today. As I look out across everyone here, I recognize a lot of people who have had a part in making Rock of Ages what it is today. You've helped in various ways, especially helping Delvin And I'm just glad that all of you are here. We set you up by feeding you first and then having a program. That's the way we do our board meetings. We eat first and then we get down to business. But I'm glad I'm here, sort of one of the first ones to speak, so I'm not too, I get to say what I want to say first. The others get to copy me, I guess, if they do. But as I thought about what to say, it's been a little time of reminiscing for me personally. I would like to say, just up front here, you know, there's a saying that I'm not exactly sure how it goes, but behind every good man is a good woman. We're here to honor Delvin today for many years of service here at Rock of Ages. But lest we give Delvin all the honor, let's remember that one of the anchors of his life has been Twila. And I think it's been a joint ministry for the two of them. I know Delvin has said oftentimes that it's been such a wonderful thing for him to be able to raise his family here and for them to be also involved in the ministry here. I've known Delvin more years than most of you here. Part of that reason is I married his only sister. So, at my first acquaintance of him, he was well, he wasn't a young teenager, but he was still a teenager. And as I look at his life, how dramatically things changed in his life. As I think about myself, I grew up having connection here. I don't know how many of you remember what the campus looked like many years ago. Long, elongated building up there, little house sitting out in the front. As I was growing up, two of my sisters worked here on weekends during their high school years, maybe some in their college. My mom worked here as a cook for a period of time. I think my grandfather lived here the last days of his life. As part of the Shared Mennonite Church, I would come up occasionally and do Wednesday evening Bible studies with the residents. And all that was in the old campus. That was the extent of my involvement for many years. And during that time, then Delvin&Twila came to Rock of Ages as volunteers. Ultimately, Delvin was offered the position of CEO administrator here. And with Delvin coming, a decision was made to expand the campus and to develop Valley View up here, all the residential units on the side of the hill. As an electrical contractor, my company did most of the wiring, or did all the wiring, I think, on the units. And I thought that was an ambitious project to undertake. But it was then I began to understand Delvin's ambition, his drive to develop a campus here. And as Steve said, Delvin is a dreamer, a visionary, with a lot of ideas how to improve Rock of Ages. Over time, I became moderator of what was known as Bible Mennonite Fellowship, and it was during that time that we were faced with the decision whether to build the lodge up here. And that was a big decision for us to make. How many years ago, Delvin? 15, 16 years ago?
2004 to 2009.
2004 to 2009. But we figured it would cost about $3 million at that time to put the building up. And I just couldn't imagine something like that. I don't know how many of you are optimists out here. I would ask you to hold your hand up, and how many of you are pessimists? I have to say I'm one of those pessimistic guys. And as I looked at what we were trying to do, you know, should we move ahead with the project of the new lodge building up there? We did. And the whole time I just couldn't see how, but we moved ahead. We made the decision we wouldn't borrow money to build the building. There's a lot of stories go into how that building was put together, and when it was completed, we were debt-free on the building. And of course, those people living in the building much different than the old building that we had. But here's Delvin, ever optimistic, always as sure as could be that we would get this building put up. And he proved me wrong. And it was a faith-building exercise, I think, for me. Maybe a lesson that I'm still learning, because I'm still a bit pessimistic on some of these projects. As I was appointed moderator of Bible Mennonite Fellowship, I began attending board meetings, and ultimately I became a board member. And at that point, Delvin changed from being my brother-in-law to me being his boss, I guess, so to speak, being on the board. Our board meetings were seldom dull, in part because at most board meetings, Delvin came with a list of ideas in ways to grow the facility. And that's what a visionary does. A visionary looks to the future, always looking ahead, looking for opportunities to make the facility better, ways to benefit the lives of the residents, how to involve the greater community to support the facility here. And I know at times Delvin would get frustrated with us as a board because we had to come to grips with his ideas that he'd already thought through. And so we had to work through some of those things. And it was after one board meeting, Delvin and I were walking through the parking lot up there, and I suggested to him that maybe there was a possibility that we could build some more living units on the side of the hill there between the parking lot and the village. And immediately, Delvin's mind gets engaged, and it was not long after that that he suggested, rather than to build more units, to build a facility that we could help people in the last days of their life, provide care for end of life. We call it building, some of you are familiar with that, transitional life care. The building was built, and it's been an asset here. So Delvin could take a suggestion idea and take it from there. We've added the Anscott property over on Muddy Valley to the campus. And I say all this not as a memory, but as recognition of the work that Delvin did here over the years. Rock of Ages would not be the facility it is today were not for the effort and energy and the vision he had to make something greater and better, and an asset and service to the community here at large. So today we honor him, we thank him for all he's put into Rock of Ages. And one of the things that Delvin has always stressed is that the Rock of Ages, our mission is representing the hands of Jesus to those who need assistance, I say in their golden years. And so we wish the best for Delvin, for Twila. We wish the best for Bill, as he is our new CEO. And so I just say, God bless you, Delvin and Twila, for all your years of faithful service. So I'm going to ask Gary Binder to come up, ask him if he would just have a few words to share. So I invite him to come up, and then I think when he's finished, Larry Warple, I think Larry will come up after that.
Gary had a big list of stuff to go over. I don't have nearly that long of a list. I haven't been here as long as Delvin or Gary. I agree with Gary about Twila. She's been a big part of what goes on here. The residents, memory care and whatnot, and all our activities have really made a difference. And backing up Delvin, supporting him with all visionary, and I think that's a good word for him. I've been here 18 plus years. I got in, well, I come up here and I put a resume on Delvin's desk and said, I need something to do around here, if you got anything. He took that to heart. I've had a chance to help build a lot of stuff, argue with Delvin, talk with him, sometimes on the thorn in his side, I think. But he couldn't fire me, so. I was here when the lodge wasn't built yet, I was here when the old building was here, and, moved here in October of '05. So I got to help work on the lodge, a lot of the other stuff around here, the shops were put in, got to work on that, got to work on this building, the TLC building, worked out in Money Valley a bit here and there, but, and all that was, the shops and everything was to give the care of the people up here that, give the guys that needed something to do, they got a shop, they'd go down and work in there. They can build stuff for this place, they can build stuff for themselves, keep them busy and keep them occupied. There's a ton of expertise in this retirement community. And it's a big family up here, that's what I really like about it. Everybody, I say you can have a neighborhood watch, we've got a neighborhood watch. But it's beneficial, somebody needs help, somebody's right there to take care of that problem. And Delvin's one of the biggest ones of that. You got a problem, he'd haul me to the hospital and things like that. I really, really appreciate it. Somebody talked about a stress management program. You have, till Delvin was stressed, he'd on that mower and he'd mow us field out here, and the faster he went, the more stressed he was. I mean, he'd get on that thing and just pray and talk and mow grass. And he felt better when he was done. He had a sense of humor too. He would do things. I remember one day after he put the cameras in, he was down in the Caribbean on some sort of meeting. He'd always go to meetings, and he was good at that. Called up Patty Shanker, one of the maids that worked here, and she's sitting in the parking lot putting her shoes on, and he could see her on the cameras down there, and he called her up and said, "Patty, what are you doing?" And she's looking around. This is just like, he was a hard worker. I remember one time, I got a call, I was down here on the backhoe doing something around here, and I got called her to go up to 642 Shiloh. They needed me up there with the machine, so I went up there right away. There was a guy standing around, and I had to dig a hole down through underneath the foundation of the house. When I got down there, just a big old ton of water comes flushing out of there. And pretty soon Delvin came out through the house, he looked like a drowned rat. He'd been in there with 8 or 10 inches of water trying to get a hole underneath the foundation to have a low point drain in. And, but he would do that. He wouldn't ask anybody else to do something he wouldn't do. He'd be right in the middle of it. And I really appreciated that about him. Just lots of good things about him. He'd sit there and talk, and we about this or that, the other vision, he'd run it by me, and I'd give my 2 cents worth in. Probably that's all they were worth, but it was just really good being here. Like I said, I've been here 18 years now. This is my second June. First one died up here, and finally got this one. So I've been through a lot of that kind of stuff. It's just really, really neat to live here, to be a part of this community. And it's all to Delvin&Twila and the rest of you that are living here, the residents that are here. It makes it so special. So, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Just before Larry comes up, I wanted to, a lot of you know Larry, but maybe there's some that don't, just wanted to give you a little bit of his background. So Larry's grandfather, Joe Krupp, would have donated the original property, the original acreage that is what Rock of Ages is now. So Larry's got a very long and deep connection to Rock of Ages. He was a board member for many years and a chairman of the board for many years. I think it's been, what, 5, 6 years since you went off of that. And so Larry's got a lot of memories of this place and of Delvin, so I asked him to come and share a few things.
It's really good to be here because of what this place means to me personally, but not only to me personally, but because of what it means to all of you people here. When I started on the board, probably something like that, board for 25 years, chairman for 24, and actually asked to serve as chairman immediately when I was put on, which is a little bit unusual. But Delvin has always challenged me by his zeal, his zest, his ability, and his vision and his heart. Just has a real vision, a real heart for people. Some of you probably know Carl Berkey. Carl would be somebody who was CEO at All the Midnight Home a number of years back, and he was involved in, I think, several other places up here, not here, but in Newburgh. And he always said, what Delvin does can't be done. It's not possible. He could make it work on a shoestring, and he could keep things going. And when I first came on the board, I was just amazed at how the finances were all figured out, but I had to figure. I couldn't figure it out. He knew exactly what was going on. Eventually, with the budgeting process and all, it became something. It was a lot more focused. We could see what was happening. But the part that really encouraged me all along the whole way as being part of this organization was the zeal and the optimism. Now, I'm probably a little different than Gary, nice in this regard. I'm somewhat of an optimist. But one of the biggest challenge that we, as a board, when I was on the board, had was somebody like Delvin, not somebody like Delvin. When Delvin would come with 80 ideas, and you got to channel them down to 2 or 3 that you actually can make happen, and it was not bad. I said never negative. I'm not saying negative about that in any way, but it's just encouraging to see somebody who is an optimist, but not just optimist, but practical from the standpoint of making it happen. I can't tell you how many times I would come up here and there was something else that needed attention, and Delvin was right there doing it. I seriously doubt if Delvin ever had any idea what a 40-hour week was. That might have been part of the time he sleeps, I don't know. he was always full of energy and doing whatever needed to be done all along the way. As I think about the vision, though, for this place, like the place that we talked about, just the old building that was there, built back when my grandfather was on the board, and my grandmother actually passed away in that old building up there. But then when the time came to try to replace it, and to come up with an idea, how in the world are you going to replace something that's going to cost $2 to $3 million and do it debt-free? And that was probably contrary to what most any other CEO would have said. I think most any other CEO would have said, no, can't be done, can't do it debt-free. Delvin was in there figuring out how to make that happen along with the board. And it was just encouraging to me to see him working together and encouraging the people that worked for him too. So Delvin, I just want to bless you for the calling God placed on your life. What it is, it's a calling He placed on you and Twila. Twila, I want to bless you for going right along and enthusiastically supporting that call and devoting both of your lives to this place so that people who are in their elderly years can have a place to come where it's a God influence, where the care is of highest quality, where the money is not an issue, and where they can come to know the Lord Jesus Christ if they don't know Him when they come here. I love the name of that newest building up there, TLC, Transitional Life Care, because that's what that's all about, transitioning from this life to the next. And the focus and the goal is for anyone who transitions from this to the next to know the Lord Jesus Christ. So thank you, Delvin and Twila both, for what you've done.
Yeah, thank you for all you fellows that shared about Delvin. So now this is probably what you've all been waiting for. Delvin and Twila, I'd like you to come up here now. Where you at? There we are. For all you that know Delvin, you know that he doesn't mind talking. So we're gonna give him a chance to talk a little bit here in just a couple minutes. Thank you for all you guys have done, and Delvin, Twila, been a real blessing to serve on the board and be involved with and observing what you've done in Rock of Ages, and just want you to know that as a board, we really want to express our appreciation for you and for what both of you have done. As was mentioned, I'm sure Delvin would agree, it's the other half, the second half, almost more than the first half sometimes, and that's appreciated. So we have a gift card and a gift for you from the Rock of Ages and the board, token of our appreciation for what you've contributed all these years to Rock of Ages. And told Delvin he could say a few words to share about what he's doing or gonna do, or whatever you want to share. Go ahead.
Chair for Twila, this may be a while. The pockets are full of golf balls. I've been putting them in my pocket when I've been giving them. My pants are gonna fall off, so I gotta get rid of them. Time goes. It's hard to believe. 42 years ago in May, we came to Rock of Ages, and our goal was to find a place to serve. We had went on a trip looking for areas. We went from Delaware to Florida up to Kentucky, and we ended up coming back to Rock of Ages. We had told the board before we left if they could use us, we would try and help where we could. Never did we know it would take this long to get where we're at. But what has been said about Twila truly is the truth as far as her backbone to me and what I am able to do here at Rock of Ages. A lot of times going home, maybe discouraged, long days, long hours, and she would encourage me. When we moved here, we moved into a little one-bedroom house. Our son Jesse, standing in the back there, slept in the crib. It's hard to believe he could get into a crib nowadays. He slept in the crib right beside our bed, and our daughter slept on the couch, Jennifer, and she's here somewhere, right there. And Jennifer was 2 or 3, 2.5, and Jesse was a baby. And that's where we started. And my first responsibility was to add 2 bedrooms to that house. And it went from there. All of our children grew up here on campus. And what a wonderful opportunity I feel in Twila for our children. I think a lot of their lifetime endeavors, their work. Jenny now is one of the top administrators there at Providence Hospital in Newburgh. Jesse is an electrician, something I always wanted to do. He liked to get his hands in it, and he's one of those electricians that makes sure it's right. He doesn't work good with me because I like to cut corners. But he really is a good electrician. Zachary, with Gary on board, when Zachary was growing up, Zachary became a millwright, which is what Gary was, from Ecuador to Alaska and around the United States. And Zachary really got his talent from working with Gary here. Pierre, they're left already today, but he went to school, and he's the first doctor in our family. and he's a doctor of physical therapy, has a shop in town. So I guess in a, dare I say, a Christian way, we're very proud of our children because I really feel it's here. The boys would water the plants for how much, Jesse, $1 an hour? Yeah. Dad was pretty cheap. But they got the job done and they learned how to work. Jenny, at the age of 14, took care of some of the hardest, difficult memory care people in the old care center. And I really believe that's where she went on to nursing. Ralph and Lucille Holderman was here when we came, and they were the administrator, and Ralph was a nurse, and she was a worker. She ran the place, and Ralph would go, and this is how frugal they were. So Pacific Coast Conference told BMF, Bible Mennonite Fellowship, if they could run the home 10 years in the black, the Pacific Coast Conference would give it to them. Ralph taught me so much. He would go to Salem almost daily, and he was a coupon shopper. Any of you used to do that? I don't think you can do coupons anymore. But he would have 5 and 10 cent savings, and he would go through stores over in Salem and come home with his groceries. And he saved. When I came, 1982, there was $60,000 in the bank. And it was after I came, the Pacific Coast Conference brought the title to the property and gave it to BMF. Ralph and Lucille, dedicated beyond belief. They lived, took a couple of the rooms in the old care center, and they lived in the home. And that's the way they ran. The place needed a lot of work. It was pretty run down, and yet he would talk to doctors. I remember sitting in the back offices of Dr. Claus Martin. And he said, you know, that place up there don't look like much, but I know the people that live there would get no better care. They're getting the best care. He said, I know one of the residents was brought back to life by Lucille. She was a foot massage, masseuse, whatever it is, how they call it. And she ended up giving a foot massage, which Dr. McLaws said that she had passed away. It's things like that that I realized the heart, what it takes to work in a place like this. It's not getting upset and leaving quickly and leaving the rest of the staff with more work. It's not, but it's really understanding and believing what you're doing, and it must come from the heart. The years that I seen Ralph and Lucille, I think they were here about 10 years, and when they left, Lucille had a back, and it was time for them to go. They were in their 70s, but it was unbelievable what they taught me in learning to do what needed to be done here at Rock of Ages if we were truly going to be a mission of caring for people from the heart. And I so appreciate that. Years later, of course, here was this young punk coming to town wanting to do these projects. And Ralph had made the money. He had $60,000 in the bank, and he didn't like it that this young kid was wanting to do these things and spend money. So there's a little friction there. But years later, I don't know, not many years, but after we started the village, one night down in Brownsville, Ralph Holderman came up to me. He said, Delvin, you are the best thing that could have happened to Rock of Ages. It wasn't about me that it would really touch my heart, it was about Ralph. That he, even in his struggles and seeing money spent, he understood that change was happening. I'm at that point. Bill is here. And I want Bill to have true success in things moving forward. It's so important for Rock of Ages to keep our mission, to stay on course, and care for people. I have a good friend that he's a for-profit resident, or a for-profit owner. I think he has about 25 facilities. How many of you have heard of the Springs? The Springs at Clackamas, the Springs and all over. They go into Montana. He wrote a book, and it's called The Culture of Promise. Fee gave me a book with a note inside, said, I think maybe you will see my culture, or my vision and mission is a lot like yours. He always said he appreciated the work here at Rock of Ages. Fee wrote a note and said he thinks maybe I could see some of that in the book. And oh, I've seen it all the way. To the point where Fee was going to start. He promised his grandma never to put her in a nursing home. That was the promise. He worked hard at that, but as she got into her 90s and older, that's when Fee developed one of the first assisted living facilities. Of course, when his grandmother walked into that facility, a brand new facility, looked beautiful, and he said, or she told him, yes, this will be nice for those folks. It did come a time where she needed to move and get the assistance. But that story touched my heart because Fee made a promise. And when Twila and I came here, our promise was to serve and to be a mission outreach to those in the community. And it's so important that our vision, our mission, isn't about building an empire, but it's about serving, touching the hearts. One of the, I think the farthest ones that have come is Gene and Randy Leidig. They come all the way from New Mexico. Randy and Gene, you have no idea what it meant to see you here. Their uncle, Joe. Pardon? Grandpa Joe. I'm sorry, Grandpa Joe was an Alaskan. He was woolly, and he, I don't know, how do you describe him, Randy?
Stubborn.
Stubborn.
Obnoxious, lovable,
And yet, he had a dear little wife, Gracie,
yes,
who just was the opposite.
yes.
Gracie was a Christian, and she prayed daily for her husband. I know Kathy Gaylor was involved, speaking to Joe about knowing the Lord. I remember one room, and I remember vividly the room he was in the old care center. He was a week from dying, and was able to lead him in the sinner's prayer. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Transitioning from this life to the next, and how important that is. I'm about done here, but there's so many people to mention that I don't want to. Wonderful staff that are so committed that they've been here. Karen over here has been here over 30 years. She came to help me for 2 weeks. I tied her up. But you understand the dedication. Back several years ago, we started a program called Seek. I had read a book and got this idea. So I did sit long enough to read a book, but I got this idea of 100% satisfaction. That everybody involved were bought into it, that if there was dissatisfaction and maybe somebody was wronged, that as staff and myself, everybody pitched in and helped. So there was a total buy-in. And I was quickly told, in fact, Carl Berkey was one of those, well, that's a negative way of handling things. But we hung on to the seek, making sure every person was satisfied. And if they weren't, we righted the wrong. But you soon seen some staff that went ahead, nothing to do with that, because they were always right. And I soon found, when a staff person was always right, and it was always somebody else, it usually created a problem. But the staff that were dedicated to make sure the residents were 100% satisfied is really so rewarding. I've talked to many of you here, talking about your loved one that was cared for, and it's so meaningful that that was appreciated. But I will say that this dear lady beside me was my right-hand person, and was there for me when things got tough. Remember, Danny, one time when we were building the village, we didn't get a wall up like that we wanted to, and it was up the upper road up above, and there was a large cut piece of ground there, and it was going to rain, and we got a terrible rainstorm at 2 o'clock in the morning. We were out there pulling plastic across that hill so that we wouldn't have a landslide off of that roadway above. It's things like that that you get discouraged and you keep going, and you need somebody beside you like Twila that has been so good. The board has been wonderful to work with. Deep appreciation for the board. I think Steve said at times, you know, you kind of butt heads, and I know I came with lots of ideas, but how wonderful it is to work with a board that you can disagree and still be brothers in Christ. And not very often, I think, you see that in our type of care. So often it's about making money. And no money, no mission, I understand that. But our first questions of somebody coming was about how can we care for you. We figured out how we can care for somebody, and then we figured out how we were going to pay for it. And that so often gets turned around. How much will you pay us? And then we'll care for you. And our goal has always been to care for somebody, whatever the need. We've had, I remember, individual that had very little. And years later, the family was sending us checks, large checks. They knew what Rock of Ages had done. They knew that what they did, what was done for their father, they knew that the care was cost more than what their father was able to pay for. This wasn't my work. I'll prove it. Tell you a short story and I'll be done. But when we built the lodge, we had cared for a family in the 90s, a very difficult. I think we only cared for them for maybe a week, but memory loss, combative, wandering, and it was just beyond our care. When we did in the early 2000s fundraising, and we started the building, Ray Cower said, he told the board, you need to start building. Well, we only had half the money. No, you need to start building, and we started. And I really feel Ray had a vision of and a direct communication with God, saying, get started, the community will be there. We were just about out of money, and I got this check. First I got a letter saying we got the residual of an estate. So of course in my mind I'm thinking the garage sale items we got. I thought, well, good, we'll get at least $100 out of it. When we were just about out of money, a $600,000 check came in, which was a great boost as we finished up the village. So it wasn't, or finished up the lodge. So it wasn't what I did, I always tell my staff, they're the best, the very best officers. Because if they do a good job, it's easy to go and say, hey, will you help us out? So our caregivers work hard. COVID was not easy. It was hard. Those that stuck with it and became determined to care for our residents was so rewarding. I'm gonna let Twila talk, or I can talk a lot longer, so. She talks longer than me, so.
I'd just like to thank everyone for coming. And it's really been a blessing. It's a bit overwhelming to see everybody that's here. Thank you so much. It's been a good journey. We're going to keep on.
Well, thank you. I guess I should have given Delvin a time limit, but I didn't. But it was good to hear what he had to share. It was some of those stories that we remember. I've asked Arliss Mishler, another one of our board members, to come up and to pray a prayer of blessing on Delvin&Twila.
I'd just like to say a few words here as well. Thank you, Delvin&Twila, for what you have done. And I had to think of what as we look back through our past lives and what the things that last the longest are the things that we do for God. And God has a blessing for those who serve Him. And I want to read just a few verses out of Psalm 112. It says this: "Blessed is the man who fears the Lord, who delights greatly in His commandments. His descendants will be mighty on earth. The generation of the upright will be blessed. Wealth and riches will be in his house, and his righteousness endures forever." And it says how he goes on to say how he will be with, even in dark times. And so I'd just like to say a prayer right now for Delvin&Twila. Our Father, we come before you this evening. We want to thank you for the testimony and the work that Delvin&Twila have both done here for Rock of Ages, and that we ask you to continue to bless the work that was started, and that you would bless them as they go into retirement, that you would continue to use them. We know Delvin will still be running away with ideas and things, and we ask that you would just give him the avenues and the things that he needs to pursue those things in a way that is honor and glorifying to you. Just bless them and their children and their children's children, and we just ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Now that we've had the prayer, I'll do my second half. Thank you, each one for coming. It means so much. See you all here, and we'll be around. We're still trying to help out where we can.
you do in the years ahead. You are now dismissed. You can stay and visit as long as you want to. I think there's still cake there if you want to get a piece of cake. And thank you so much for coming out this afternoon and this evening. You're dismissed.